is going on here. So if you can, if everything's cool, just say hi in chat. And I am going to launch right in. I'm going to be talking about the College 529 here on College Talk Tuesday. So here's the deal with the 529. If you're just joining us, welcome to College Talk Tuesday. I had a little issue, I guess, starting the stream, so to speak. That makes me giggle. So we're going to talk about the 529, and then I'm going to give you a cheat sheet on college visits. I also want to talk a little bit about the college essay. So if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. The 529 is good for some people, but it's not good or can actually hurt many other people. And what I mean by that is that the 529 is the main question with that is not how much, not whether or not it hurts you, but how much it hurts you, because the 529 counts as an asset in the financial aid formulas. So, in other words, you're penalized for saving money in your kid's name, whether it be a 529 or something else. But the main issue is whether or not you're going to be able to qualify for need-based financial aid based on your income. Now, there's something like 77 factors involved in the whole financial aid formula, and income is the most important one, but by no means is it the only one. So I get it. I get into this much more detail with my actual workshops that we do live and online. And I want to apologize to anyone who's joining us who could not get a seat for this Wednesday's workshop in Syosset at the VFW, because I sent out one email over the weekend and we booked like 36 seats. So we're sold out, but I am planning on doing another one where I'll be talking about this and some other things. So here's the way I look at it. There's a certain amount of contribution that the government expects you to make. It's called EFC, Expected Family Contribution, and there's a whole chunk of it that's made from your income, roughly 25% if I had to use a rule of thumb. So let's say that you made $200,000, 25% of that is $50,000. It's very hard to qualify for any type of aid if you are expected to contribute, easy for me to say, $50,000 before they start looking at other stuff like your assets, not necessarily how much you have, but where you have it saved. So if you're making an income of, that's well over $200,000, my rule of thumb is that if you have only one kid in college at that particular time, it's very hard to qualify for anything at a private school. However, if you have more than one kid, meaning you have two or possibly three, I was talking to a gentleman today, Gary, who told me his oldest son is headed off to a very well-regarded private school, a private college, but he's got two kids coming up who are twins who are 2 years behind. When that happens, what the effect will be is that his estimated family contribution will be split among his kids. So he may have had a high estimated family contribution with one kid. Let's call it $50,000, just to use a round number. If you have two kids in school, that EFC is now $25,000 for each kid. So what that means is if the school costs $60,000 and your EFC is $25,000, then you are eligible for the balance, or $35,000. And at some schools, they'll cover that entire $35,000 amount. So that being said, back to the 529. If your income is at such a level where you have the possibility of qualifying for need-based aid, meaning that if you're applying to a private school and it's under $200,000, 100 to 150, let's say, then the issue with the 529 is that it might actually it will hurt your chances of qualifying. And the way you figure out the impact of that is by formula. The 529 is considered a parent asset, which means it is penalized at a 5% amount. So if you had $100,000 saved in a 529, then what that means is that your contribution gets increased by $5,000 or $5,600 and change. So the name of the game is to lower your estimated family contribution. The lower your EFC, the better it is for, I'm like a politician. the better it is for your eligibility. Now, if your income is at a very high point, meaning that it's like $300,000, there's really no way that you're going to be able to qualify for need-based aid. So the 529 in that case is good because it's got certain benefits. You can the earnings are not taxed. You get a deduction in some states for the contributions, so it might not be such a bad thing if you're not going to be able to qualify for need-based aid. The rest of the story is even if you can't qualify for need-based aid, you shouldn't despair because there's actually more merit-based funding out there than there is need-based. Okay, so what do you do if you're if you have a 529 and you've determined that it is hurting you, that it is in the wrong places? Well, you don't just go willy-nilly moving around recklessly, because what you have to understand are a few things. Number one, you have to understand what are the negative impacts or impacts, plural, of moving that money. So, technically speaking, if you use a 529 for non-higher education or non-qualified educational expenses, meaning any expense that's not tuition or room and board or directly related to college, then you will pay a penalty based on 10% of the earnings. So good news, bad news, or bad news, good news might be that you don't really have much in the way of earnings. So what you would do is, let's say you had $5,000 worth of earnings in your 529 account, and you're wondering whether you should move it or not. The penalty would be $500. And if you were looking at moving $100,000, let's say, that had that gain of $5,000, but let's say the total amount was $100,000, your negative impact, the reduction in your eligibility, is $5,000. So you're weighing $500 on one hand versus $500 on the other hand, $5,000 on the other hand. That is, to me, it's a no-brainer. But you also, of course, have to look at the tax implications. So a few moving parts, but it should be a relatively black and white, clear-cut discussion or analysis. Now, the other side of the story is, well, where do you put that money? And in the financial aid formulas, there are several types of assets that are exempt. And two of the main ones that I see a lot as a non-financial advisor, I see a lot of people using annuity products, and I see a lot of people using insurance products. And all I'm going to say about this, because I'm speaking way out of school, is that some insurance products are lousy. In fact, most insurance products are pretty lousy, and I say that because they're very hard to get your money out of. There's penalties, there's all sorts of fees when you dump the money in there and all that. And there's very few products that are what I would consider, in my non-expert opinion, to be suitable, meaning that you can get 100% of your money back and they're guaranteed, you can't lose any money, and other bells and whistles like that. I've been in this field about 16 years. I can count on one hand the number of products that I think are good products, and I've seen a whole lot of lousy ones. Annuities I see used also, but you have to be very careful about what types of annuities and the surrender charges or the fees that are associated with holding money in these products. So you have to be very careful about that. But in effect, the strategy is to take money from bucket A, where it's penalizing you, and moving into bucket B, which is completely penalty free. It's off your financial aid balance sheet, and it's totally legal and ethical and all of that. But you just have to be careful. Okay. Did I have anything else to say on the 529? Yeah, just picking up the last point I wanted to make, which I made before, is related to how much merit money there is out there. The average discount at a college now is almost 50%. It's higher at private colleges, it's lower at public colleges, but most colleges are discounting. Out of the 4,000 colleges in the country, there's only about 90 that are considered competitive, meaning that they will admit 50% or less. And that means the vast majority of colleges are competing with each other, and they are doing so by offering bribes, or what they call scholarships, but let's call a spade. It's bribes. So the trick is to apply to a set of schools that are not only going to be great for everything else that you're looking for, but also are likely to give you money. You don't have to pay full price. That is a choice. Let me see if Pearl has anything to say. First, she clicked on the link. It said, sorry, page not available. Thanks, Pearl. And then it said she's on it. Okay, so if there's any questions or comments in chat, I'm going to try to bump over to them. Pearl, if you could if you could, I guess, text me a couple of questions. I just want to take a quick pause here. I see Cliff Gladstone once again, loyal viewer, is on. Okay, thanks, Cliff. All right, so I'm going to wait because there's a little bit of a delay. I am going to move on to a quick word about how the admissions decision works, because this surprises a lot of people when I talk about this live and in person. And I also wanted to, it's not really an announcement, it's a pre-announcement that we're going to be offering an online course on how to get into college called The Incomparable Applicant, but it's not quite ready for prime time yet. We beta tested it about 6 months ago. The feedback was great, but I'm not ready to make that announcement yet. But some of this material that I'm about to talk to you about is really going to be wrapped up more thoroughly in that course. So how are college applicants evaluated? Well, there's a few main things. There is the rigor of their coursework, which means senior year is on the table. Don't take it easy for senior year. If it's too late, it probably isn't. But if you need to change your schedule around to throw in the extra AP that you were trying to blow off, don't. Second half of senior year, you can take it easy. First half, you can't, because rigor is very important. GPA, your rank, and the profile of your high school. Each high school has a specific profile that gets disclosed publicly, and you can actually get it from your superintendent's website. I've seen quite a few of them recently, or the principal should be able to give it to you also. Some schools are a lot more rigorous than others, and some schools offer more AP classes than others, just to use one example. So if you are in one particular high school and they offer 12 APs, but you chose 4, and you're competing with someone in a different part of the country, maybe they only had 4, and that kid took all 4, that second kid in the other part of the country is going to be looked upon more favorably, because there isn't a question about, well, why didn't he take more classes when he had the opportunity? So rigor, very, very important. Then there's extracurricular activities, particularly things like leadership. What's so great about leadership? Well, I review a lot of college applications and resumes, and apparently everyone who goes to college is a leader. There's all chiefs, no Indians. I don't mean that in the politically incorrect way. No followers, only leaders. There's different types of leadership. You don't have to be the captain of a team, or you don't have to necessarily, be the president of a club or something like that, but those are indicia of leadership. But also taking charge of projects, things like that. Those are also other ways to demonstrate leadership, but that is important. The essays, which I'm going to talk a little bit about right when I finish this off. The best essays are conversational, and they are interesting. The worst essays sound like 16 people edited them, and they use a whole bunch of big words, and they don't really say anything. They don't address the question. More on that. Honors, awards, and talents. That's very important. Real-world experience. That gets overlooked a lot. That means internships and jobs, and even job shadowing. Those are looked upon very, very favorably. By the way, not only by college admissions officers, but also by employers. The biggest thing that surprises people about, the whole issue of, is college supposed to prepare you for anything? How do you succeed post-college and all that? I think one of the most surprising things that I have certainly come across is that it's at least equally as important where you intern as where you went to college. Something like 50% of all new hires come from employers' internship pools, meaning they're pulling people from their own interns. So you should be, once you get into college, you should be thinking internship right away, because the freshman year internship leads to sophomore, and sophomore to junior. And by junior year, you want to have a pretty good idea of what you want to be, what you want to do the rest of your life. Same thing in high school. If you're a rising senior right now, it may be too late. It may not be too late to do a last-minute shadowing or internship over the summer. If you're a junior or younger, think about doing this. It doesn't have to be something formal. It doesn't have to be something you get credit for, but it should be something related to a field that you're interested in, ideally. And listen, if you hate it, that's great too, because it'll prevent you from going into that field. Okay. The college interview. A lot of schools are cutting back on their interviews. I advocate trying to schedule one, even if the college doesn't seem particularly interested in doing an interview, because it shows that you're interested in that school. And so much of getting into school is demonstrating interest. It's one of these things that colleges look for. They want to see that you're very interested, that you visited, that you went to the local, the local info sessions, sales pitches, or you logged into their prospective client that's the accurate word, but prospective student portal. Sometimes schools will give kids access, usually it's after they applied, but all those types of things demonstrate interest. They get tracked. So one thing that's totally in your control. I hear horror stories year after year about kids who didn't get into schools that they thought they should have gotten in because perhaps they didn't demonstrate interest. That's almost always the common denominator, where they get either deferred or rejected by what they had hoped were safety schools. Okay, here's the truth, though, about getting into college. The main point is that college is it's very hard for admissions officers to figure out who they should let in and who they shouldn't, because so many kids look the same on paper. That's one thing. There's a lot of grade inflation in high school. That's probably the main reason. But the second thing is that it's a lot harder to get into a competitive school than you might think if you were only to review the stats. If you were to look at, okay, this school admits 15%, that's pretty competitive, but I seem to be, above or near the median in terms of standardized test scores and GPA. Well, in reality, you shouldn't feel that complacent, because most competitive schools reserve roughly 2/3 of their incoming class for non-academic reasons. That is my second use of air quotes today, and hopefully that's going to be my last. And when I say non-academic, what do I mean? I mean all sorts of stuff that may not be that politically correct. So, what's a good category? I'll rack off a few. Underrepresented minorities, international students, recruited athletes, recruited musicians, legacies, ultra-affluent families, which are known as development cases. I resisted the air quote impulse right there. And a few other types of categories. Those are allocated already, and a book written by a former Duke admissions officer estimated that percentage of slots that are allocated at the top schools are anywhere from 2/3 to 80%. So what that means is that if you're not in one of those special categories and you think you have a good shot based on the grades and scores, you're wrong, because those grades and scores of the special category people tend to be lower, and they drag down the median. They drag down the averages. So you really, to feel comfortable, need to be the upper end. The bigger picture when you step back here is that college is not really a meritocracy. There's a small percentage, anywhere from 20% to 33%, that's admitted based on merits, and then there's a bigger chunk, that 2/3 to 80%, that's admitted on, what category they fall into, and then they look at merit. There's two different tracks to getting in. So what that means is you have to battle even harder to demonstrate why they should take you, or the way I talk about it in my course, is why you are an incomparable applicant. Why should they take you compared to the other 5,000 kids who have the same grades and the same scores? What's different? And that is a hard question to answer, but the way you answer that is by pointing to different things in your background, in your resume, in your essays, and so forth. Your whole application has to sort of tell that narrative about you and why you are interesting and why you are different. Okay, so I promised I would talk a little bit about the college essay. Let me just take a quick text break to look at Pearl, who is still freezing me out. Thanks, Pearl. I love that. We need to talk, okay? We're having texting issues. Okay, let me take a quick drink. You, in the meantime, look at this. I have used that essay, that example for college essays for probably 5 or 6 years. Essays need to be interesting and need to grab your attention. No, I don't think you have to talk about headless body, topless bar, or Hillary's got 6 weeks to live, or was abducted by space aliens, or those types of things. But what you need to understand is that admissions officers are bombarded with hundreds of really boring essays that they have to slog through in a very short period of time. So the issue is, how do you stand out? How do you get them to pay attention to you? And you should take a lesson from the tabloids, because some of the highest paid writers in America write headlines for the tabloids that are designed to catch your attention when you are, wherever you are, at the coffee shop, or you're buying smokes, newsstand, or you're at the supermarket, or whatever. So they are designed to cut through the clutter. We're bombarded by thousands of marketing messages every day, and that's what a good headline writer will do. Same thing with you. You also have to understand that you need to cut through the clutter and grab your reader, your admissions officer, with a strong, interesting, punchy opening sentence, which gets them to read sentence number 2. And sentence number 2, the purpose of that should be to get them to go to sentence number 3, and so on and so forth. What you say, of course, is very important, but you can have the best message, but if you write it in a boring fashion, you may never even get it read. Now, the essay is something that kids stress out a lot about because it's really the first time they've been asked to write something personal. It's kind of, to me, it's a marketing exercise, and most kids don't have any type of experience with marketing. But I want to tell you, it's not quite as important as, at least relative to the amount of time and effort and tears and sleepless nights that I see a lot of kids going through. So my advice is write it from your own voice. Do not have someone write it for you. Make sure you're answering the question correctly, meaning you're reading the question first and then answering it. Of course, you want to make sure you're telling something, even if you don't think it's interesting, make it conversational. Make it sound like you're talking, cleaned up version, but make it sound like you're talking to the admissions officer, or to a friend, or to a guy at the bar. Although hopefully, if you're a kid watching this, you're too young to have gone to a bar. But you know what I'm talking about, coffee bar. By the way, when I say talking, I don't mean this. Yeah, I mean, talking. Okay, that's how a good essay really should flow, and just make sure that you grab their attention. Okay, I told you I would have a course coming up on that. I mentioned that before. All right, last thing. I want to mention the checklist that I came up with. So you can, let me see if I can post this. You can download it on my blog at collegeplanningGuru.com/visit. I'm sorry, college-visit. So let me just put that on there. Try to pull this off. College. Oops. This has got to be exciting for you to watch me type. College visit. I think that is it. It's the most recent post if you're watching this on the 14th. Flag Day, by the way, June 14th. And this recording, of course, is available, so I think that is the correct link. Just a few words about the college visit. So I broke it up into 3 different categories: questions you can ask a department head or a professor, and then a set of questions you can ask an upperclassman, and a set of questions you can ask the career center. Hey, why not talk to the career center about how they can help you be successful after college? And I would call some of my best clients. What they do is they call weeks in advance and set up appointments with department heads and all these other types of people. You can't set up an appointment with an upperclassman, and you may not run into an upperclassman during the summer if that's when you're planning on visiting, but that's okay. It might be easier to talk to professors and department heads. And I would ask questions that have to do with, listen, I'm thinking about majoring in X. What advice would you give me? What types of companies recruit on campus? Who is the most successful out of everyone who graduated last year? The people who majored in this major, where are they now? Who wasn't successful? How do I avoid falling into those types of traps? I broke it down, and think of this list as a starting point. It's not meant to be all inclusive, but what I want you to understand is that picking a college it's kind of funny how we do it. I don't really understand the whole thing about rank, other than you always want to be with the best, and we as Americans have an obsession with the best. But there's really no such thing, as far as I'm concerned, with one school that is great monolithically across all departments and all that. So when we pick schools, we do it based on majors and careers and departments and all that. But you have to then take it to the next level and investigate and dig in with people who are in that department, who will be the ones that will have the most direct impact or influence on your college career. Not as opposed to some kid who's giving a tour on campus who may or may not be familiar with the what you're majoring in, or some admissions officer or someone that they trot out to do the presentations who's given the same presentation like 200 times in the last 6 months. So I think getting specific, granular information and questions, I think you will definitely, if you ask the right questions, you will receive some eye-opening answers, and I think they're much more valuable than the generalized sales pitchy college tours and info sessions and all that. I'm not saying don't do those, particularly because they count as demonstrating interest, and you will see dorms and cafeterias and things like that, but just treat that as a starting point. And like I said, summer is not ideal to visit colleges because they're not in session. You can't see the kids who go there, but you do what you can. There's nothing wrong with visiting once in the summer. Then if you like something, especially what you hear from the Career Center people and also the department heads or professors, then you can go back in the fall and do take a second look, another look-see. All right, I had a couple of questions here that we got ahead of time. Pearl still not asking me questions. Okay, so we have literally 2 minutes left here before we have a hard stop at 12:30, and this is actually a question that I got in advance of our workshop that we're doing live tomorrow night in Syosset on Wednesday. That I'm mentioning. It's sold out. If it's possible, sell out a free workshop. So we don't have any room. I will be doing some more, but this is a question that we got because we always try to ask people, what do you want to hear? My son finishing 11th grade. This is from Carl. I'm not going to use his last name. Has money in a UTMA put there by my father. I'm the custodian. The problem, of course, is that it's under my son's social security number. My understanding is that this arrangement is irrevocable. Now, there's a whole bunch of more of other stuff here that I don't have time to answer, but let me just talk to you about that because that's a question I get quite frequently. So, money in a UTMA, Uniform Trust and Minors Act, or UGMA, Uniform Guardianship, something or other, Minors Act. One, the kid can't get money until he's 18, the other one until he's 21. I'm not sure which is which. I'm embarrassed, but, I don't have much pride. The answer is, what you have to understand is that legally, and this is me speaking as a recovering attorney, not a currently practicing one, so I'm not giving you legal advice, but legally, my understanding of the standard of whether what you can what should govern your decision to move money around or not legally is your standard is what's in the best interest of the minor, meaning that is moving money around going to be in their best interest if that minor child later finds out and sues you, which for many parents is a remote possibility. For me and Pearl, it's a good possibility. No, it's a remote possibility also. Although our kids threaten with suing us all the time, but that's because Pearl was a prosecutor in Queens, and she's kind of she used to be, and she's kind of indoctrinated them about the joys of litigation. So anyway, so any move that you make, such as taking money out of an account in order to qualify for more financial aid and therefore be able to afford a better college for your child, has to stand up under the test of what a reasonable, investor or guardian would deem to be, a good move. And just about every one of my clients, when they've talked to their other advisors, whether it's accountants or lawyers or whatever, they have been very comfortable that moving money around in this purpose has definitely been in the best interests of their kids. So I wanted to answer that, and I got time for one more question, which is related. Should you, and this is from just initials. Should you put money in another child's name so that it does not affect financial aid for the child going into college? I assume inheritance counts as income for financial aid. Is there any way not to have it counted? So money in another kid's name, that strategy could help you on the main financial aid form, the FAFSA, but there's another form, the CSS profile, that 260 or 270 colleges use, and they ask about money in all siblings' names, siblings that are younger than 19. So it would work for some colleges, it would not work for others. It depends on what colleges you're applying to, because each college has its own set of rules and forms that they require. The second question, I assume inheritance counts as income for financial aid. So inheritance counts as money, but it may not count as income. I don't think inheritances are taxable, so income is not going to be affected. What is, meaning again, I'm not an accountant. I told you I'm a recovering attorney. I was never an accountant, so I don't know the answer to this. But my feeling is that it won't hurt you in terms of income, because you won't have to file a tax return. But clearly, you need to check with your accountant. But the rest of the story is that if you have that money in your kid's name, that's a problem, because that is going to be penalized at a huge penalty, meaning that money in your name is penalized at around 5%. I spoke about that earlier. Money in a kid's name penalized at 20 or 25%. So if you have $100,000 in your name, you're penalized. Your aid is reduced, or your eligibility for aid is reduced by $5,000, $5,600, somewhere around there. If it's in your kid's name, your eligibility is reduced by $20,000 or $25,000. So that's the rub. That's not exactly what you asked me, but I thought that was the right answer to give. Okay, I need to wrap up here. So to stay in touch, check out our website, collegeplanningguru.com. And if you go to that site /college visit, you will be able to download for free. You don't have to log in or anything. The little cheat sheet that I have with all the questions, it's a one-pager. I try to keep it quick and easy to use. You can also, friend us, or if you haven't already, on the interwebs, on Facebook and all that. And there's a whole lot more information on the College Planning Guru website. If you have any questions that I didn't get to here, I see there's a whole lot of stuff happening, 5 or 6 posts that keep flying in. I will do my best to answer those before next week's College Talk Tuesday, which will be on Tuesday, I think. We'll do it on Tuesday next week. Thanks a lot for watching. Pearl and I appreciate the support and your questions, and this is a lot of fun for us, and we'll keep doing it, and please pass it around. So thanks a lot. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.